theyeshiva.net.
Page 198, 3 lines from the top. Yeah, on top it says bracha, or kahai gavna. Right, that's what we're holding. Yeah, or the second line. The Balatanya explained that the three, in Yiddishkeit, there's generally 3 dimensions. There's Torah, and there's mitzvahs. Mitzvahs themselves, there's 2 types of mitzvahs. Torah represents mazon. It's the food for the soul, the food for the neshama, mazon l'neshama. And the comparison between the two is that food is what we call a chayus pnimi or a chiyus pnimi. It's the life force that is internalized within the parameters of the human organism. And that's the whole function and purpose and extraordinary contribution of food, that it literally converts and is metamorphosized, is transformed into something that is the very person, the very bloodstream of the person, that gives him or her vitality, chayus. Hadam hu hanefesh, as the pasuk says. The blood is the seat of the soul. The blood is the life force, or the blood contains the life force. And everything else that the food, all the other parts of the person that grow and function and operate as a result of the mazon, the energy that becomes the fuel and the oxygen of the very body of the person. And similarly, on a spiritual level, Torah is the divine mazon for the Jew. It's the divine, spiritual, divine, godly sustenance and nutrition. It gives the nutrients, the food that becomes one with the person. The Torah is in me. And because it's something that we cannot learn and understand and comprehend, even though every person, according to their own capacity and knowledge and limited tools and the source of their soul and so forth, but it's relatable to the human mind. And when the human mind absorbs it, it becomes completely one with the person, to the point that you can't even distinguish anymore between the two. Just like the food, you can't distinguish between the two. It completely assimilates into the human system. Assimilates. Okay. This is a good assimilation. There's assimilation that it assimilates, right?
Such a muscle, because a Jew that assimilates becomes very much like what that is
right.
absorbed into.
Right.
The Yid always has that spark.
The Pintalayid.
Rabbi mentioned that the dam
Yeah.
carries the blood through it. As far as I understand, with my knowledge up to my life at this point, there's 2 life energies traveling through the body, the nefesh and the neshama. One goes through the blood and one goes through the nervous system. Is that true?
Yeah, one is connected. There's the blood, the circulation system, and the nervous system. Nefesh. The nefesh is connected very much with the blood, and the nervous system is obviously connected very much with the brain, the central nervous system.
And that carries the neshama, right? Nefesh.
So generally we speak about nefesh, ruach, neshama, right? The Medrash says that chamisha shemes nikrula, that the soul has 5 names: nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and even yechida. Right? Often they speak about naran, which is nefesh, ruach, neshama, nun, reish, nun. Naran, nefesh, ruach, neshama. So nefesh is associated very much with the blood. Nefesh, yeah. There's also melech. Melech has an acronym of 3 words: moyach, leiv, and kaved. Right? Moyach, the mind, the brain, and leiv, the heart, kaved, the liver. So nefesh, ruach, neshama, that's another distinction. But generally, nefesh is the biological function of a person. A person as a biological being. Ruach is associated more with midas, with emotion. And neshama is associated more with cognizance, with awareness, with intellect. Nishmas Shaddai Tevinem, the pasuk says. Haneshama Sheba Moyach.
There's a kavanah in the siddur before putting on the field. It says Haneshama Sheba Moichi.
Okay.
because that's what I work with. It's the nervous system, and the original chiropractor said that it carries chias through the body from the Abishur. From the moyach, the Abishur puts the chias in the moyach, then it travels down the Chutta Sedra and goes out.
You work with the nervous system? Okay.
Life energy doctor, nervous system doctor. The nervous system is just the teva that the Abishur put in to carry the chias through the Gashmi's body.
Right, okay. Gewaldig. Huh? Yeah. So that's why Torah is compared to the Monsey. Then there's the mitzvahs which are compared to levushim, which is we called Iyar Makif, because the mitzvah, it's not an idea that a person learns and digests and it assimilates into the person's mind and it becomes, so to speak, the substance of your being, your thought process, the way you look at the world, the way you perceive the world. Like Torah, where a person comprehends it and therefore he owns it. He, so to speak, grasps it. Almost like when you grasp a physical thing and it's inside of you. And inside of you here doesn't mean that there's something else inside of you. Inside of you means, like we spoke about malakalam, it becomes you. Like food for the body. It doesn't remain a distinct entity. It starts as a distinct entity, but that is the whole uniqueness of eating and digestion. And that's why the food one eats is so important, because the body is sensitive to what can become part of it and what should not become part of it. What will really simply become toxic or toxins for the body and what should become part of it, because the body actually is conducive for this. It's a good match, right? That's the whole study of different types of foods and different types of nutrients that are suitable for one body and maybe not for another body, etc. And there's endless diversity in this, like there are in foods in terms of taste and in terms of flavors and in terms of nutrients, in terms of contributions, in terms of the various ingredients that it makes up and the way it affects the body and different parts of the body in all detail. Then there is the concept of, and that's why he said there's different shiurim in Talmud Torah. There's the Perek Echad Shachas, Perek Echad Arvis. And then there's Torah V'Hagisa B'Yom V'Layla, and everything in between, the first extreme and the other extreme. Just like eating styles. There's so many different types of eating styles. There's people who eat very little, and there's people who eat and just eat pas b'melach, bread with salt, the minimum. And then there's eating in a very expansive fashion, and delicacies, and geschmack, and different colors, and there's all these different types of sensitivity. So this is again a mashal for the nimshal. The mitzvah, on the other hand, you could say dresses up the person. A Jew does a mitzvah, so his soul or her soul, his body is enclosed in the mitzvah. The mitzvah becomes like a lavush. It decorates the person. Katzina ratza in tatrenu, as the pasuk says in Tehillim. It crowns him. It decorates him, it adores him. He dresses up in it. You can't say the mitzvah is absorbed into the very personality. I mean, a person can learn the mitzvah. That's the Torah of the mitzvah. A person can appreciate the mitzvah. A person can internalize the mitzvah in terms of understanding as much as they can understand it. That's the Torah of the mitzvah. Every mitzvah has Torah. The Torah of the mitzvah. But the mitzvah itself is defined as a lavush, which is an Iyar Makif, which comes actually from a higher shirish. We call it Soivav Kalam, and it's Ratzain Ha'elyon, right? The divine desire, which is now experienced and encompasses the person as he or she does the particular mitzvah, whatever that mitzvah is, which is why mitzvahs are called levushim, garments. In mitzvahs themselves, he said there's two types of mitzvahs. There are most mitzvahs which are done through conscious Ratzain. I want to do it. And that's the propelling factor behind it. I want to do it. And the point here is not how much I understand it. That's the Torah of it. The point is the will. My Ratzain is aligned with his will. Asay Ratzainaka Ratzaincha. But there is a das here, there's a Ratzain here, there's a consciousness. I want to do it, and that always precedes the action. He said, then there is those unique types of mitzvahs that actually Ratzain will will preclude those mitzvahs. If I want to do it, I will not be able to do it. They always happen only in a state of absent-mindedness, of a lack of an experience, a conscious experience of Ratzon. And the example the Balatanya gave was the mitzvah of Shikha. The mitzvah of Shikha can only take root and unfold when the person genuinely forgets. And if I just say, I'm now going to forget, that's not called forgetting, that's just an act. It's superficial, it's not authentic. And then that mitzvah taka can't apply. Somebody asked me yesterday, why doesn't he give an example of Hashavas Aveda? Hashavas Aveda, right, is returning something that's lost. I can't wake up in the morning and say, okay, today I'm doing Hashavas Aveda. Huh? Oh, exactly. I cannot guarantee that somebody lost something today on Forshay or in the Shul. I mean, usually you could guarantee. So actually you could prepare for it very well. But even if you're going to argue, the Gemara says that Aveda, Mitzia, Baba, Hesachadas, right? In Yiddish we have an expression, Amitzia, et Gefunden Amitzia. Mitzia means you found it, you didn't expect it. If you expected it, it's not a Mitzia. It found you. Very good. Matzasi David Avdi. The Gemara says three things come by Hesachadas, yeah? Mashiach, Mitzia, and Akrav, right? Mashiach, Matzasi David Avdi, a Mitzia, and a scorpion, which some want to say could also be a metaphor. But there's three things come by Hesachadas. You don't expect it. The scorpion you don't expect, the Ag, whatever the Gemara means with that, the Mashiach and Mitzia.
The mitzvah was shekher. The mitzvah is forgetting, or the mitzvah is after that?
Yeah, the mitzvah is not to forget. There's no mitzvah to forget. If you forget, it becomes a mitzvah. In other words, you can't precipitate it. Man kann nicht gehen in mikveh und unter einer Gartel und sagen l'shem yichud and be sich misboinen and get ready for the mitzvah. Hashavas Aveda, on the other hand, yeah, I can't anticipate or create you losing something. I mean, if I tell you, okay, lose something, so I can do Hashavas Aveda, that's not the point of Hashavas Aveda. Don't lose it, we don't do Hashavas Aveda. So Aveda means you lost it. What? No. Machitim chazecher amalek zacher. You got to have a bigger ratzon over there. but I just want to bring out this point, and that is Hashavas Aveda, you could want to do it, and it may happen, it may not happen. Number two, you don't need the absence of das. You don't need the absence of das. Your das and ratzon may not guarantee it, but it doesn't require you not to have das. I don't want to do it. I'm not interested in Hashavas Aveda. I'm interested. There may not be an Aveda. There may be an Aveda. You understand? It's always an Inyan of ratzon, even though there are circumstances not dependent on me, like in so many cases and situations. Here, it's...
How does bittul apply in that period?
No, so the bittul of a regular mitzvah is the bittul of the ratzon. In other words, that I want my ratzon wants to do the mitzvah. But here he says, these mitzvahs, he says, are rooted in makif. And then there's the mitzvahs that are rooted in makif le-makif. Not arich, but atik. Not keser, as Saivav Kalalman, the beginning of Atzilus, which is beyond everything else, but that which is even beyond that, completely beyond even Ratzon, beyond definition. So that's how it expresses itself even down here in the mitzvah.
But he calls even the makif, you know, he still calls that Rava Mikol Ravin. So he still identifies it as a
right. Ratzon li Ratzon, or makif le makif.
That's a Ratzon that we can't access here in mirroring.
It's not conscious, right?
That Ratzon we can't mirror.
Yeah. Yeah. Super conscious. Yeah.
Imagine somebody has a huge field and many workers and tells them, today we are going to become mitzvah of Shir.
No.
And I'm going to tell you, you work as fast as you can. Don't look back. And you're guaranteed, you know, like you go in here, you're going to find somebody lost something. You sit the wrong way.
If you try to plan to forget something, you'll never forget it. I'm going to forget this. I'm going to forget this. The worst thing to forget something is to try to forget it, right? When people tell you, forget it, I never said it. Yeah, forget it. Yeah, you remember it forever.
Jury is instructed. The best way to remember your wife's birthday, forget it once.
Yeah, purposely forgot.
Reb Zayda fasted. Reb Zayda, the Gemara says about Mitzvah, Reb Zayda fasted 40 fasts, and one Gersa there's 100 fasts, so that the Mahalach of Talmud Bavli should be forgotten from him, so he could be open to Talmud Yerushalmi. Which also we have to understand what that means. Usually we say the more you know Torah, the better it is, right? Who's going to say, forget today, tell somebody, forget the whole Bavli, so you could understand Yerushalmi. So it's a very deep opinion. In other words, the Mahalach HaMachshava, our learning, we just learned the facts that it says. The real learning is understanding the mahalach hamachshava, the process of thinking that was behind the whole Talmud Bavli. The mindset, the paradigms, that was obstructing Talmud Yerushalmi. That's a whole different Indian. The fasting, that's what the fasting did, you understand? Also, if you don't chazer, you're going to forget. It's even an easier way to forget. You don't have to fast. Yeah.
To abstract the club.
The Gemara says the B'zeda fasted 40 or 100 fasts. He should forget Talmud Bavli because he wanted to be open to Talmud Yerushalmi.
All the mitzvahs.
No.
Say like, which mitzvahs do you think have a higher share than any other mitzvah in the Torah? Like, you wouldn't think of shikha as like,
So that's the Gevaldik that the Baal Tanya found that there's a Tosefta in Peah. That there's a Tosefta B'sechta Peah, right? That Mamish... A verworfene Tosefta. A verworfene Tosefta, yeah. Mamish a verworfene Tosefta. That's a good...
Said that somebody came to Rabbi Iyar with suffers from shikha learning.
She said, how many times do you learn? Yeah. I read it that somebody came to Rav Elyashiv, Zechrona Levrach, and he said that he forgets. He learns Gemara and he forgets, and he needs a special eitzah or a bracha, like he asked for advice. So Rav Elyashiv asked him how many times he chazes the Gemara. So he says 4 times. So he says, that's not called you have a problem of forgetting. If you told me that you learned it over 60 times, and then you forgot a few days later, then we would have an issue. You learn 4 times, you forget. Stanamala mensch, you're a normal human being. Learn 60 times and then we'll see if there's a problem. But we all see it. I mean, you learn something, yeah, a day later, 2 days later, unless it has a tremendous impact on you and transforms your kishkas, you forget it.
I have a question. I understood in Tanya that doing mitzvahs is the one way to finite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is that rich?
No, Lavush is a connection. Lavush doesn't mean a connection, but he says this in Tanya Perek Hey, the difference of Torah and mitzvahs. That Torah, it becomes a yichud nifla. When somebody understands something, he says it's a yichud nifla, she'ein yichud kamayu v'loi ka'erkoi nimtze klal begashmius liyas la'achadim u'miyachadim mamish mikol tzadu pina. Perek Hey. Translate the oasis of the Balatanya, mekenish to besetzen. But we can strive. Yichud nifla, it's a wondrous unity. She'ein yichud kamayhu nimtze klal. You will not find this type of unity, right? Liyas la'achadim u'miyachadim mamish, to be completely unified from every angle. As when a Jew learns Torah and gets it, how his like mazon in the body. Now the gut and Torah is the chiritzayin shel, it's chachmas shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's the tremendous dveikus. And then he continues, the mitzvah is an Iyar makav. In other words, let's say a Jew puts on tefillin. So what's that? So physically, the tefillin is on top of me. You're going to say the tefillin becomes my mindset. So most mitzvahs, a person lights, the tefillin is actually, you see it on the tefillin because it's around your body, or the talus is around your body. But even a mitzvah, I give tzedakah, right? So my hand is now involved in tzedakah. So you could say that the Iyar of tzedakah, which is Hashem's ratzon, so to speak, encompasses my hand and encompasses my consciousness. I'm involved now in tzedakah. I'm involved in a gemilas chesed. I'm writing a check for tzedakah. So what happens right now? I'm doing a mitzvah right now. So to say that tzedakah becomes my personality, I'm motivated to do it. I want to do it. I may do it with a tremendous simcha. Hopefully I'm doing it with tremendous simcha. But the mitzvah, I'm involved in the mitzvah. I'm enclosed in the mitzvah. So it's a relationship of levushim. So on one level, he says Torah is much higher. Like mazon, you can't compare. In the shirish, though, mitzvah is a less tangible energy, much more transcendent energy, which is why it doesn't assimilate. Of course it's a relationship. Yeah. Just generally Torah and mitzvahs, because that's ritzayin over chachmas shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Rambam talks about achdus hamaskil v'hamaskil.
Yes, Mor Nevuchim. Yeah, which Rambam you're talking about? So the Rambam is... Yeah. The Tanya, chapter 5, he doesn't quote it, but there's a few lashonos that are probably Mor Nevuchim. Maskil, muskel, seichel. right?
What are the mitzvahs?
You mentioned
He was joking.
If a person doesn't want to put on tefillin and doesn't want to do it, has no kavanah or nothing, puts on tefillin, he's still yotze.
He's still yotze.
Why doesn't it work the same way with shikha? I want to do it, so it works.
No, you could give as many sheaves as you want to a poor person. Gesundheit.
I want to do it the same way. I don't want to put on tefillin. I put not. I'm using the mitzvah. I put mitzvah.
No, because the mitzvah of tefillin is not. The mitzvah of tefillin is to have tefillin on you, or to bind tefillin, like eating matzah. I ate matzah.
So I don't want to do shikha.
Here it's a different mitzvah. I took grain and I gave it to a poor person. It's a gewaldige Zach. It's called tzedakah. Tzedakah, yeah. I could do that with anything, but this particular mitzvah requires shikha. Somebody also asked, when somebody desecrates Shabbos by mistake, somebody's mechalel Shabbos. For example, they forgot that today is Shabbos. You come down Shabbos morning, you forget it's Shabbos, you cook up an egg. Or you forget that this malacha is forbidden on Shabbos. You forget, it's called shoygig. You learn to be. So what's the halach? You have to bring a carbon chatos in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. That's a mitzvah. This mitzvah can only come from forgetting. You had to forget, right? So why doesn't he bring carbon chatos? But l'cha'ira, it's a little different, because here, it's not pshat you forgot. Your das was a wrong das. Huh?
when you do malach on Shabbos, I mean, you know, this, you didn't do the shit.
Right. Oh. In other words, the carbon chatas, there's no mitzvah to go bring a carbon chatas. The mitzvah is to keep Shabbos. That you do with Ratzon. You learn about Shabbos, you keep Shabbos. Yeah. A person who didn't do it, then there's the tikkun of the carbon chatas. Yeah. Also, when you forgot that you're not allowed to do this malacha, you didn't remember, you're doing it with das. You know, I'm cooking an egg. Huh?
It's the carelessness.
It's the carelessness. Yeah. There's a certain das. I know exactly what I'm doing. If you're misasik, it's something else. You know exactly what you're doing. Shikha, so shikha is a whole different level. There's mamash an absence of das. Here I know what I'm doing. I'm opening a light, I'm cooking, I'm carrying. I forgot that you're not allowed to do this malacha. In other words, my das is distorted. Or I forgot it's Shabbos. I just wanted to make mention of that. Yeah?
2 o'clock in the morning and that's a misasik.
That's misasik, that's something else, yeah? I'm talking shoygig.
Said before about the Vushim, that the mitzvah is on the Vushim and it doesn't change the
Yeah.
When we say the actual person, talking about the actual I or the person, personality.
I think both of them. Probably both.
So the regilas of a mitzvah doesn't change the personality of the person.
It does, of course. A person gives tzedakah every day. The chinuch says, "Achrei ha'pa'ulos nemshachas halavavos," that when people do certain things, of course it has an effect on the person. But the way the makif has a tremendous effect, in the way soiviv has a deeper effect, subconscious.
So there's like mitzvah like shikha is a deeper,
even deeper effect. So that's the source. To come up with this idea, you need a source for it. So that's what the Baal Tanya has in this Tosefta, that the Chazal tell us that there was a chassid, a pious man, who brought a special carbon to the Beis HaMikdash and made a special feast just because he forgot. Now, who celebrates forgetfulness? Apparently, sometimes forgetting is very good for you. Sometimes absent-mindedness is not so bad. So the absent-minded farmer, the fact that he had shikha, he goes and says, go bring a special carbon, not one carbon, 2 carbonas, an ox for an oila and an ox for a shlom. And his son says, Father, it's not the first mitzvah we've done, it's not the last mitzvah we're going to do. He says, no, this is different. All the mitzvahs we do with das, and this mitzvah is shaloi midateinu. What's the gewaldige yichus? So you have to celebrate it because it's not from das. So that's what the Baal Tanya explains. This means that this mitzvah is a unique gift that you cannot precipitate, you can't facilitate it, you can't make a hachana for it on any level, not even on the most subtle level, because if you make a preparation for it, it's not the mitzvah. So what's the big deal? So you didn't make, so it's random. That means that it comes from a place that's deeper than any ability to make a conscious preparation for. Why can't you make a conscious preparation for? Because it's rooted in the place of the self, which is rooted in the place of the divine, that is beyond any form of conscious manifestation, even will.
What's the timing of the shit? Like how long? Like if you left the plane 5 minutes after overnight, what is considered? How long do we have to forget?
Take a look, Rambam, Hilchis Matnes Aniyim, I think Perek Vav. All the details.
Hashem cannot do this mitzvah.
So it represents that place. He's going to explain more. The second line, since in Ratzon Hashem it's rooted in a place that's Raiv Raivin, Ratzon LeRatzon, Makif LeMakif, beyond the conscious Ratzon. So how does it come down here also? In a mitzvah that can't come, it can't be initiated through das, through conscious perceptiveness, knowledge, awareness, desire. O kahai gavna, somebody asked yesterday, what was the kahai gavna? O kahai gavna matzinu kama mitzvah shem dafka shaloi l'miratz. We find other mitzvahs that are precisely, can happen only if there's no ratz. Interesting example. Kamoy Reb Shimon ben Shatach, it's like the story of Reb Shimon ben Shatach, Shebarach l'Mitzrayim al sheratzu l'manoisei nasi. He escaped to Egypt from Eretz Yisrael because he found out they want to appoint him as the Nasi. Nasi is what you would translate as the leader of the Sanhedrin, who was basically the spiritual leader of the Jewish people. The Sanhedrin, which is the supreme court of the Jewish people, numbered 71 people. We're talking about the great Sanhedrin, Sanhedrin G'dola. There was a Sanhedrin in every city of 23. Those were the local courts. There was smaller bezdins, you can have 3 for certain halachas, but 23 was a serious court that can do many serious penalties and so forth. But the main Sanhedrin, the body, the legislative body of the Jewish people, was located in the Beis HaMikdash, Lishkas HaGazis it was called, on the Harabayis, a room near the Beis HaMikdash, and that was the Sanhedrin. Of course, it started in Moshe Rabbeinu's days. He was one, and he appointed 70. Who was the Nasi? The Nasi was like Moshe Rabbeinu. He was the leader. He was the one on top. Every generation had the Nasi of the Sanhedrin, who was like, so to speak, the spiritual leader of the Jewish people. When we go through in Pirkei Avos, right? We go through Pirkei Avos, the evolution of the generations. So usually, it speaks about 2 people. One was the Nasi, and one was under him, the Av Bezdin. So the Balatanya says there's a story of Shimon ben Shatach. He heard that they want to appoint him as a Nasi for the Sanhedrin. He escaped to Egypt. Baruch l'Mitzrayim. V'lo yhayer itzoyne lekabel b'chinas hanasiyas. He really did not want it. Ubarach, so he ran away. V'chuli, and the story is v'ratfu achrav. They chased him. They pursued him. V'nasa Nasi, and he became a Nasi. So now he says something very sharp. The not wanting was exactly what could make him a Nasi. What him not wanting made them want. And made him worthy of it, right? He could be a Nasi. As the Mishnah says, if you pursue kavod, then kavod runs away.
Gives us a whole into the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu. Really, mamish ran away.
You don't have to.
He's talking about obviously some of that from Moshe.
Right.
It gives you tremendous amount into where Moshe was rooted.
Why Moshe didn't want. That Moshe didn't want. And for 7 days, Hashem was, so to speak, arguing with him to go, and he really didn't want to.
3,000 years. You just think about how the Rebbe's were point.
Yeah. So what's the nekuda? It says kolak. To the Isser to go to Mitzrayim is lihishtakei Hashem, to go as a residence. If you're going just to run away, then it's fine. Temporary. Yeah. You see, they brought him back. Yeah. It's brought in Sfarim, a moedidika thing, that the Rambam, when he used to sign his letters, the Rambam lived in Egypt, he would sign some letters at least. Moshe ben Maimon, ha'over al shloisha lavin b'chol yom. Moshe ben Maimon, who transgresses 3 mitzvahs every single day. It says 3 times in Torah, don't go back to Egypt. Imagine today, a great personality signing every letter, yeah? Ha'over al shloisha lavin b'chol yom.
Wasn't the Rambam controversial?
How he signed his letters. Not every letter, but it's brought in Sfarim that he signed it. I think the Urim V'Tumim brings it. The Tumim brings it, I think, that but Shimon ben Shattach ran away. So the Mishnah says, it's not a pesas gula. If you run after covet runs away from you. It's haba hatalia, it's dependent. In other words, if I'm running after covet, then I'm in a different place. I may be a fine man who has an ego and I want covet, but it's not, I'm just in a different place. The real covet can't escape. So a person will going to say, but I want real covet. So I'm going to run away from covet. It's like shikha. Yeah. Somebody once came to one of the Gedolei Yisrael and he said, I don't understand. I'm running away from covet my whole life and the covet never came. So he said a little sharply, he says that a dog runs ahead of the master, but when it comes to a fork, it turns around. It turns around, yeah. So Salanta once said that's pshat pnei hader ke pnei hakelav. The Gemara says, the Mishnah says in Soita, that there's going to be a generation where the face of the generation is like the face of a dog. This is what's pshat. So the dog goes ahead, but at any important point, he turns behind, turns around to see where you want to go. You have to take the poles, yeah. So he says that the leader, he looks like he's leading, but he's really turning around. It's a pshat pnei adoika pnei akelef. So this person told him, he said, you take a running away, but every few minutes you turn around to see if it's chasing you. So it's not going to work. What does that mean? So it's obviously metaphoric. We're talking about a genuine experience. Like shikha, prepare to forget. You're not forgetting. That's what made him worthy. It's haba talia, because by definition, if he needs it for his own validation, so then he's in a different place. There's much more insecurity there. There are many more voids there. And basically you can't really lead because you need the people more than they need you, in a sense. So it's a whole different experience. So, but how does a person become that way? It's an inner transformation. It's not something we press a button, that's it. I don't need validation anymore. I don't need covet anymore. Covet means nothing to me. It may mean a lot to me. And if it means a lot to me, it means a lot to me. And it may mean all to me. So this is an inner process. It's interesting, he says the name of Shimon ben Shattach. You see there's a star, Ein B'Hisafas. The story that we have here is in Yerushalmi, in Brachas, and it's quoted in a Tosfos in Chagiga, to Zayin Amid Beis. I looked it up before. And Tosfos says, Tosfos quotes the Yerushalmi, Chagiga, I think, Daf to Zayin. So he brings it on Rabbi Yehuda ben Tabai, contemporary. Rabbi Yehuda ben Tabai. So he says Rabbi Yehuda ben Tabai, he brings Yerushalmi, the Bnei Yerushalayim wanted to appoint him as a Nasi. He ran away to Alexandria, to Egypt, and Tosfos brings from Yerushalmi that the Bnei Yerushalayim wrote a letter, and they wrote, this is a letter from the great Jerusalem to the small Alexandria. Yerushalayim Hagdoila Alexandria Ktana. Ad Monsey Achi Yoshev Etzlechem V'ani Yosheves Aguma Alav. How long will my brother sit by you, and we will remain orphaned and deprived and in pain that we don't have him? And ultimately, as we see, they bring him back, and he becomes a Nasi. He says it here in Reb Shimon ben Shattach. It may be there's a machlokes if Reb Shimon ben Shattach was the Nasi, and Rabbi Yehuda ben Tabai was the Av Bezdin, or was the other way. Or Rabbi Yehuda ben Tabai was the Nasi, and Shimon ben Shattach was the Av Bezdin. So there's two shittas. So it could be that the Balatanya is learning a loita shitta, that Rabbi Shimon ben Shattach was the Nasi, not Rabbi Yehuda ben Tabai, so the story has to be on Rabbi Shimon ben Shattach. Yerushalmi holds that Rabbi Shimon ben Shattach was Taka, the Av Bezdin, so the story would apply to Rabbi Yehuda ben Tabai. But like the Bavli, there's a shitta fakert, so it could be that's why he says Reb Shimon ben Shattach. I just want to mention that, because in Yerushalmi and Tosfos, the story is on Rabbi Yehuda ben Tabai. V'hainu shemitzvah hazoi si gamkein sharsha mebchinas makiv de makiv l'mayla k'mashin is barala. This mitzvah also, the mitzvah of Nesiyas, the mitzvah of assuming this position, like Soim Tasim Alech Melech. It's not really a melech, but the Nasi of the Sanhedrin is something that if I have a rotzen for it, I can't go there. It comes from a place that's much deeper, what he calls Makav de Makav. You'll see in the Maimer Tzena Orena Be'inyan Nasa v'Nishma. This is connected to the concept of Nasa v'Nishma, that before Matan Torah, Chazal say the Jewish people said, we will do and we will hear. Shebchines Nasa zeh bitul rotzen legamri l'mayla me'adas v'aseichel. Nasa, we will do, represents perhaps a bittul of the rotzen completely, beyond even das. Ve'efsher zeh b'chines b'china hanimshach mirayve d'chol rayven shel b'china hanal. The Nasa is rooted in the rayve d'chol rayven, the rotzen beyond the rotzen explained above, which is even a deeper place in the person. V'lachein kosher lehem beis ksarim echad keneged naisav echad keneged nishma. This would explain what the Gemara says, that when the Jews said Nasa before Nishma, they received 2 crowns. One for Nasa and one for Nishma. Hainu, why 2 crowns? Beis pchines shebekeser. The 2 crowns represent the 2 dimensions of Keser Elyon. Shem pchines makif hanimshach ha'idei Nishma, or pchines makif limakif hanimshach ha'idei Nasa, shu bittul haratzon shemavatal daiter etzena legamre. He's teaching here Nasa and Nishma not as Nasa will do and Nishma will understand, but much deeper. Nishma means actually we're going to listen. That's the bittul of the first Ratzon. We're going to listen. My Ratzon wants to be aligned with your Ratzon. Nasa is even a deeper inyan. Nasa is, it's rooted in the deeper Ratzon, in the deeper Keser. The Ratzon le-Ratzon at the core of the person, which is beyond conscious experience of Ratzon. So there's 2 crowns as a result. One represents the Keser of Arich, the Chitzoni Keser, and one represents the Pnimi Keser. Valkein higdimu Nasa l'Nishma. That's why Chazal emphasized not that they said both, but that they said Nasa first. Ki kein b'chines atik u'meb'chines ein soif kadmoin l'chol hagdomim. Because Nasa is rooted in Atik, which is the Ein Sof, which is Kadmoin. Kadmoin means it precedes everything that precedes anything. It precedes everything. All the beginnings are preceded by it. The lower level of Keser always comes from the higher level of Keser Atik. So similar to what the Gemara says in the beginning of the 6th Perek of Brachas. I think it's Daf Lamed Hey or Lamed Vav. The Gemara says an interesting thing. That the pasuk says, the pasuk says in Kriya Shema, we say it every day. V'haftas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha b'chol meidecha, etc. V'hayim shamaya tishmu. If you listen, what's going to be? La'avas Hashem Elokecha malavdai. I'll give rain. V'yasafta deganecha v'siroishcha v'yitzarecha. You'll gather your grain. Tiroishcha is your wine. And Yitzarecha is your oil, your olives. V'nasati esav b'sodcha levimtecha, etc. It's at the beginning of the 6th Perek of Brachas, so it should be Daf Atazai. Lamed Hey Amud Beis. Reb Chanina asked a question. In one pasuk in Hoshea Isaiah it says V'lakachti d'goni b'iitay. I'll take care of your grain. In Kriya Shema it says V'asafta d'goncha. You'll take care of your grain. Loi kasha. Kan bizman she Yisrael oisir etzayin shel makom. Kan bizman she'ein Yisrael oisir etzayin shel makom. When Jews are doing the will of Hashem, I'll do your grain. I'll gather your grain. You just sit in your house. I'll bring it in. When they don't do Hashem's will, then v'asafta d'gancha. You go to work. Go make a living. V'asafta d'gancha. Azay zog the Gemara. Done.
Well, the Sakta says, if you will do it.
Frekt. So this is the unbelievable question. This is called Ein Oisin Ritzayin Shel Makom. Read the parsha. V'haya'im Shamaya Tishmal Mitzvah She'anoichi Mitzaves Chem La'afas Hashem Elokechem La'avdei B'chol Levavchem. You're joking me? Where do you get a better Oisin Ritzayin Shel Makom? Imagine somebody tells you, forgive the mashal, but I just want to illustrate it. We like sometimes illustrations. If somebody says, whatever my wife asks me to do, I do. Not only I do, I love and I serve with all my heart and with all my soul. No, you're a horrible husband. Where can you get better? Ein oisin ritzoyna. Gemara. Ein oisin ritzoyna shel makom. It says vasafta de gancha. Apella de kazach. It's very, very strange. If it says, if you don't do what I say, vasafta de gancha. That's not what he says. Fakert. Afterwards he says, right? He shamru lachem. Pen yifta levavchem. Besaitem, then I'm going to get angry. I'm going to stop the rain. There won't be rain. There won't be produce. Vavadatem. Like the pasuk continues in Kriya Shema. And yet the Gemara says that it's called Ein Oisin Ritzoyna Shel Makom. V'hoyim Shamoya Tishma. Ein, that they're not doing God's will. The Gemara says, Vasafta the Gancha is when they're not doing God's will. The question is, this is called not doing God's will. You're listening to him. Why is that not doing God's will? Ein Oisin, they're not doing Ritzoyna, the will, Shel Makom of Hashem. Or Oisin Ritzoyna Shel Makom, they are doing. So he says, a hafla de kavart. Al derech ze masham nazal reish perik vav de brachas, the mashakasav was after the gan chamaydik shein oisin etzenu shel makom. Afal pi de kaya v'hoyim shemaya tishmal mitzvaysai. What do you mean, ein oisin? They're listening. The kvetch here is v'hoyim shemaya. So to speak. Nasa v'nishma. It's the v'nishma. In other words, ki pirush oisin ritzaynai. Oisin Ritzaynai also means two things. Oisin Ritzaynai means you do the will, but Oisin Ritzaynai means you make the will. You create the will. Oisin Ritzaynai. Yeah. Lahamshich b'chinas haratzin b'chinas raiva dechol raiva. To access the ultimate truest will, what's called raiva dechol raiva in Zohar. The will behind all the wills. And what does this depend? Depends on one detail. There's one difference between the first parsha of Krishma and the second parsha of Krishma in terms of the way it describes the love to God. One difference. What's the difference? Atazai. 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 The first parsha it says B'chol ma'oidecha. B'chol avavcha, or B'chol nafshecha, or B'chol ma'oidecha. In the second parsha it says La'avdoi, B'chol avavchem, or B'chol nafshechem, not B'chol ma'oidechem. That's the difference between Oisin Ritzoyna Shel Makom and Ein Oisin. On a literal level, it doesn't seem to be a big difference. With all your heart, with all your soul. And yet, relative to what we're explaining here, that's called Ein Oisin Ritzoyna Shel Makom. Why? So he says, V'zel v'ayde b'chol ma'oidcha, shehu bittul rotzen l'mayla mehadas, v'ashenken ayde b'chol avavchem b'chol nafshechem. B'chol avavchem b'chol nafshechem is like we spoke before, your whole heart, your whole soul, is your conscious heart, your conscious soul. Ma'oid means very. Toiv ma'oid means very good. Ma'oid, in fact, is not a noun. Ma'oid means veriness. So b'chol ma'oidcha means with your veriness. What does that mean? With all your the word ma'oid means very, right? Toiv ma'oid. Gadol ma'oid. Chacham ma'oid. Adla ma'oid. It just means more. So b'chol avavcha b'chol nafshcha is a description of a heart, of a soul. B'chol ma'odecha means that which is beyond that. It's ma'oid. So that's what he calls bittul ratzon l'mayla mehadas. That he aligns his ratzon with Hashem, that ratzon which is beyond das, beyond conscious will. V'lachein legabe ha'amshacha shemebchinas atik shu ein soif mamish loy nikra adayin oisim ritzoyna shel makom. Without the b'chol ma'odcha, relative to the accessing to the energy from atik, which is mamish ein soif, beyond Atzilus, beyond even the keser on top of Atzilus, it's still not called oisim ritzoyna shel makom. V'karev lazeh yeshloimar gamkein milas mitzvahs loisas al mitzvahs eseh. This also explains the mile of loisasa, the mitzvahs that you don't do, over the mitzvahs that you do. Shabakiya mitzvah. There's two types of mitzvahs, of course. We explained all in mitzvahs essay. There's regular mitzvahs and there's shikha or nesiyas. But generally you have mitzvahs that the only way you do it is through not doing it. Loisasa. You have mitzvahs, the only way you do it is through action. So generally we look at it and we say mitzvahs loisas are passive. Mitzvahs essay are active. How do I do the mitzvah of not eating treif? Nothing. How do I do the mitzvah of not working on Shabbos? Nothing. I just sit on my couch and don't work on Shabbos. Yeah. How do I do the mitzvah of loy sirtzach, loy sinaf, loy sig? Don't steal. How do you not steal? You just don't steal. Yeah. How do you not lie? How do you not say lashon hara? You don't. It's not something you do. It's something you don't do. What we know in terms of penalties that loisesas are often considered much more stringent than ases. You're not doing anything, you're just not doing. So he says, now we can understand it. A mitzvah's essay you can do. A mitzvah's loisesa you can't do. In other words, the way you do it is by not doing it, by holding back.
More inside work.
So it's much more inner work. A mitzvah's essay is a type of inyan and elikus that you can initiate through your action. Here, your action can't initiate it. Only your inaction. It happens through silence. It can't happen through action. It has to happen through passivity, through inaction, because it's much deeper. Because the deeper it is, the less self-expression.
That's why Shabbos is more holy, because you're keeping back.
You're keeping back, yeah. That's what he says. Chazal say in Teres Koyanim, these weeks, it's the subduing of the unholy. The subduing, yeah. Sitra Achra is unholy, the other side.
Say what you just said again, the deeper.
The divine that I can initiate through action is not so deep as the divine that I can initiate through inaction, through silence, through holding back, through the passivity. Just like we said, shikha is deeper. Why? Because you're not present. In mitzvahs loisas, you're not so present. You're quiet. You're not doing. Mitzvahs essay, I go and I do it. I eat matzah, I blow shofar, and the world changes. Mitzvahs loisas, so what do I do? Garnished. In that garnished, you have much more. You're refraining. Yeah.
So your refraining is doing machshava.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're doing something, there's no machshava.
Yeah, yeah. It says in Teres Koyanim, Sifra, in Kedoshim, don't say, I don't want to eat chazer, I don't want gili arayas. Eloyoim efshi, I do want. I do want, but God told me not to. And I'm holding back. That's a skafi sitrach. In other words, no, you don't have to say, I don't want. I do want. But God told me not to, so I'm not. This creates the subduing of the Sitra Achra, and it says the glory of God is extended above anything else. And he brings Mara Mekaimis from different Maimarim. Val derech ze yuven gamkein mashakosov makamacher soif dibra maschu re'ei reach b'ni. This is the same theme that we explained in the Maimir Eirech B'ni and told us. We actually learned it. Be'inyan habrachas shekibel Yaakov mi Yitzchak. The brachas that Yaakov received from Yitzchak shahayu daika b'li daiter shel Yitzchak. Why couldn't Rivkah go and tell Yitzchak that Yaakov needs the brachas? So the Balatanya says here a new word. Rivkah needed the brachas to come from a place that's shikha, from the place that's beyond Yitzchak's das. When he's giving the brachas, he thought something else. He thought he's speaking to Esav. In other words, beli daiter, rakba achicha b'mirma. Your brother came deceitfully. She efsher lehislabish b'pchinas adas. It was such a type of bracha, she knew it can't go through das. If it goes through das, it's going to mitigate it. It's going to dilute it. It's the words the father told the boy. This mitzvah is greater because it was without our das. It wasn't filtered, diluted, and compromised through our conscious experience of it.
It's very good. Yitzchak told Esav, I can't anymore give you. I can't give you what I give you. Yaakov ended up getting a bracha shel midati. What am I going to do? You're here now. The best I can do is give you a bracha midati.
Yeah.
That's not going to make sense.
Yeah. Right.
It's a little schwer because the Chatchila was going to give Esav a bracha midas. So what?
And Rivkah wanted Yaakov to get the bracha. What type of bracha? A bracha shalom midas, higher than Yitzchak's das.
Because he already knew that now he gave him something that he can't give him. Before that he didn't know. When it came to the time to
being channeled more clearly.
Channeled from a higher place in Hashem and in Yitzchak. What's from a place beyond his Ratzon. You would think Yitzchak's bracha wasn't a real bracha because he was duped. It's like you manipulate me and you force me to bless this person or sell this person the building. I thought it was some. So usually we say it's a mekachtos, right? It was a mistake. Here we're saying that it actually came from a much deeper place in Yitzchak. It came from a place beyond das, beyond Ratzon. Miyodeya, yeah.
Shik has to be a really mitzvah because there's no doubt.
No das at all. So it doesn't get limited and filtered and entangled through the human perception of it. So he's saying that's similar to Loisa Salagabe Ese. In Loisa said is Ratzon. In Loisa said is Ratzon, it's just a Ratzon that creates passivity, a negative Ratzon, and Shikha is Bechal no Ratzon. Yeah. But that's the mile of Loisa over Ese, the same mile. Okay. Thank you.
And this is a little bit reminiscent, but I don't know if it's the same idea as not. I'm not sure. I may be misthinking it. Sfas Emes you said over by Pesach night by the Ben HaChacham. The Ben HaChacham's real geschmack is ma'edus v'achukim. He's focusing on chukim. The whole point is the best I can do in terms of the Baruch Shalom is to
Ein maftir nachar Pesach afikoyma.
understanding of it all. That's how you explain Sfas Emes was saying.
Yeah.
And if you want to know what a real relationship is,
Right.
I don't know if it's the same idea.
Well, I think it's a similar idea, but on a more basic level.
A very more Kabbalistic fundamental.
In other words, what Sfas Emes is saying is that if somebody, he says the greatest taste is the afikoyman, right? You want it to linger. You don't want to eat afterwards. In other words, the greatest taste in life is the mitzvah, the opportunity to do a mitzvah. You could understand it in a relationship when somebody really loves somebody. Yeah, the fact that I understand it, fine. It actually takes away a little bit. It means that I'm enjoying it too. The real relationship, I'm doing something for you. So that's it. So that's yeah. Over there, we're still talking about consciousness. There's the shmiya. It's shmiya. It's not.
Didn't we learn a Torah a few weeks ago about that even the Ratzon is from the Eibishter? I don't know why you. I think it was the Mornaim Sfas Emes that day that we learned Sfas Emes.
Yeah. Oh, about the Mitzvah, you mean?
So, even the Ratzon is.
Oh, yeah, about in Tazria, we learned the Mornaim and the Sfas Emes. That Magbiya Shvalim, that's what you mean, Magbiya Shvalim, yeah.
And in a sense,
He says from Simcha Binim of Pshischa, we say in the morning, Mashpil Geim Adei Aretz, Magbiya Shvalim Admarim. The arrogant he lowers, and the lower one he picks up. So he says, but they'll go down again. He says, Magbiya Shvalim, they remain Shvalim even when they go up. Because they know everything is a gift, yeah.
The peak then is when he starts.
We're doing technically.
It's a similar.
Yeah.
The only way technically you get it done.
Yeah. But this is something nobody can prepare for. Try to prepare.
Nobody. My accountant knew the answer. I was like, you must have heard the Shir already today. He's like, no, to be honest with you, I was like about 8 years old. Somebody told me about this and I've never forgot. What happened yesterday, I don't remember, but what happened 8 years ago.
He never forgot Shikha.
Yeah.
Once you hear about Shikha, you don't forget it.
It's the only word, my father was like, Tim Kazak and Amulek.
No, Tim Kazak Amalek is verkehrt, Schira. Interesting thing, in Gemara you have simonim, nemenaks. In Gemara often, a big sugya is a simon. In Baba Basra, in one of the places, it's Amalek simon. There's a simon to remember Gemara Amalek. So Rabbi Yaakov Emden in Haggas Yavit says, how can the Gemara bring the whole concept of a siman is to remember? And Dafka, what does he bring as a siman? Amalek, where there's a mitzvah mochitim chazecher Amalek. Interesting thing.
Does the Alter Rebbe have Dvar Torah on that Inyan of that we have to force ourselves to forget Amalek?
No, it says Zacher es asher asal. It actually says you have to remember what Amalek did, and then blot out his memory. But if you don't remember it, there's nothing to blot out. Sometimes you have to remember something in order to destroy it.
Like Zacher, remember
Huh?
remembering the World War II.
Yeah.
Not to forget it. Remember?
You have to remember what happened in order to erase it. That's a very deep thing. In other words, if you repress it, you won't erase it. It's going to be there. You have to bring it up in order to get rid of it. There's. If you keep it down there, you won't get rid of it. You think you got rid of it. It's going to emerge sooner or later. You have to have Zacher.
Get angry about it.
You have to remember Amalek in order to get rid of it. It's a very powerful idea.
Buried feelings never die.
Buried feelings don't die. Yeah. You got to bring it under the light, and then you can get rid of it. You have to be able to experience its pain, its stupidity, its vanity, whatever it is. If it's Amalek.
You mentioned that tefillin is something that's makif.
Or Makif, yeah.
It says in somewhere that the goyim, when they see Yidden in tefillin, they will pray.
Brachas Davav. V'ro kol amei haaretz kishem Hashem nikra alecha v'yaru mimeka amar Rebbe Elazar elu tefillin sheberosh. When they see the tefillin v'yaru
It
mimeka.
was wearing tefillin, and the goyim going to pray.
Well, I know a guy was.
The Alter Rebbe,
He got scared that he has a bomb. So
the Balatanya.
The
Bit.
lotion there, the tefillin in the head.
It happened it happened when the Alter Rebbe was being arrested, and the Russian officers came, and he was wearing tefillin, and they saw it and they left. So somebody asked the Balatanya, he says, I wear tefillin and nobody gets afraid. So he said, it's a pasuk, v'yaru mimeka. V'ro kol amei. He says, I also wear tefillin. So he says, Rebbe Elazar says, elu tefillin shebirosh. Not elu tefillin she'al harosh. The tefillin darf sein in cup, nicht afen cup. Tefillin shebirosh, not tefillin she'al harosh. The tefillin is in the head, not on the head. You hear?
That level, that an Indian of subconscious, to reach that level.
In other words, that the Makif is, it's ingrained. But it remains Makif.
He was talking about levushim and how mitzvahs is levushim, and also the
It's-
levush can really affect the inner panemius of the
course.
person. If someone wears clown clothes their whole life,
Of course.
they become a clown.
Of course.
If someone does mitzvahs more and more and more, then it's going to
Of course.
assimilate into them.
We see garments affect people very deeply. The Gemara says Rabbi Yochanan used to call money mechabdusa. He would call clothes mechabdusa. The honor. They give honor. Mechabdusa.
They don't define you.
More than money.
They don't define you. Clothes.
They
They should.
What kind of clothes? What kind of clothes?
well, depends. You have to be careful with that.
They absolutely define people to other.
To other people.
Yeah, everybody judges everybody by clothes, unless depending on their level.
I don't judge you by your clothes.
You're good. You're good.
You're not everybody, he says.
Rabbi, you're good. You're trying to teach us that we should all do that, be like that.
But I do like Nochum's shirt.
Thank you, Rabbi.
What's the matter with my
Can you see the socks?
I didn't look at it, but it's good.
What does it mean Shabbos morning when you ended Yaakov Kodesh Hava? I didn't remember.
Yeah. That Midas HaRachmanis is Poide Midas HaChesed. Sometimes a person's chesed is locked up. It's choked. And the empathy, the compassion helps it come out.
For example, how's Chesed choked?
When a person has an inability to love, or at least a harder time loving, so how does one get it out? So it says, Yaakov Asher Pada Savram, the sense of compassion, of empathy on one's pain, on one's trauma, on one's difficulties and challenges, without judging it, but not without judging it, but without whitewashing it. That's what Rachmanis is. Rachmanis has a beautiful combination. It's not based on naivete or blindness, but it doesn't have to judge. We have two extremes, chesed and gvura. Gvura is judgmental, and chesed is blind. And rachamim is neither.
So why is the rachamim for the it's we're also why only chesed?
Gvura is usually not something you have to be paida.
Proper gvura?
Gvura is more holding back, but chesed is an expression, and that expression may be contained, very hidden, very repressed. So midas harachamim helps. I'll give you a classic example. We see it constantly. If somebody gets very, very upset at their child, very, very upset, and they're feeling a lot of anger and frustration and annoyance with a child or a spouse or even an employee or a partner or a neighbor. And it may be for good reason, right? Whether it's completely justified or not completely justified, but there's reasons for it. The person is not just completely crazy. One of the most powerful things to do at that moment is not to make believe nothing happened or to blame yourself, but really to try to have compassion and empathy for what the person is going through. To see it from their perspective, to see their journey. Doesn't mean they were right. It doesn't mean you were wrong. But it means to be able to put on their glasses for a moment and try to feel what they're going through. And that usually will mitigate the alienation and help the love come out more.
Or the minimum understand that I don't understand what that person is going through. That's
yeah, but it will mitigate the difficulty, the sharpness. Doesn't mean everything is perfect and good, but you can already think from a much better place, not from a place of anger. So for that you must have rachamim. It's not chesed where you cover it up and you make believe it, or you're just so in love that you're blind. And it's not gvura where I have to judge you and say, that's it, there's no relationship anymore. Rachamim really means I can try to tune into your world and experience compassion. And compassion doesn't mean you're right. Compassion just means maybe you're wrong, but I feel compassion that, this is where you went and this was your decisions and this is what you feel you have to go through, And it allows me to be able to remain close to you without minimizing what you may have done. I don't have to go there. I don't have to repress, and turn you into a saint. And yet I could still be close to you. So it's a very powerful tool. That's why it's called the intermediary between the synthesize with chesed and gvura. Chesed is, like blind love. You're just in love. And gvura is very exact.
Who was showing compassion to who in your example?
So let's say the father, who was triggered so badly by his child, or a wife by her husband, or a husband by a wife. But a father with a child, you see it pretty often. When the father could stop and just imagine for a moment he's that child, without expectations and without me being a father, and just try to go on that person's journey through his own lenses as much as you can.
So a person's using his own rachamim. It could influence his.
Yeah, so automatically everything will change. The climate will change. And you can actually come to much better decisions. Because the decisions from Gevura will be very narrow. And the decisions from Chesed will be too too broad, yeah. It'll be like this or like this. And Rachamim can create a balance.
You got someone have to do something, you don't have to hurt him.
Yeah, it's the idea of Jacobson.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.